Hi again. Chapter 10 of James Orr's Sidelights on Christian Doctrine. The last chapter, Eternity and Its Issues. Orr is on the resurrection here, the nature of the resurrection. On these dread last things, solemn and impressive as they are, I can only permit myself to speak very briefly. It has already been seen how the doctrine of the resurrection enters as an integral element into that general system of Christian truth. How it is implied in the scriptural doctrine of man as a compound personality, in the idea of death as the consequence of sin, in the facts of Christ's own incarnation and resurrection, in the idea of a complete redemption. There's a phrase we don't use as Jehovah's Witnesses, a complete redemption, because the redemption of the body, that is, as we see the resurrection is actually a recreation of the body. But the redemption of the complete human being is the Christian conception of salvation. Paul counted it a serious error to say that the resurrection is past already, according to 2 Timothy 2:18. That is, to interpret it in some purely spiritual sense, i.e. the 144,000 so-called resurrection. The intermediate or disembodied state of believers, happy as that may be, according to 2 Corinthians 5:6-8 and Philippians 1:23, Revelation 14 and 13, all these scriptures will be in the description, is still not one of perfected bliss. And there's a difference between Orthodox doctrine and Jehovah's Witness doctrine. The disembodied state of believers, according to, for say, Philippians 1:23, where Paul says he doesn't know what to choose, to stay in the body or to leave the body to be with the Lord. It's still not perfected bliss, though, according to this doctrine of redemption. The body must be redeemed as well. The Christian waits for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body. That's Romans 8, verse 23. The pledge of that redemption is given him in the resurrection of Christ, according to 1 Corinthians 15, verse 20. To all questions as to how this marvel can be brought about, Christ only gives the answer, ye err, not knowing the Scriptures, nor the power of God. Matthew 22:29. Only let this caution be given, which may relieve some part of the difficulty. The essence of the doctrine of resurrection does not lie in any thought of identity of material particles between the old body and the new. Such identity did exist in the case of Christ, who rose in the very body which 3 days earlier had been laid in the tomb. It will exist in the case of the saints who are alive at the Advent, whose bodies will be changed according to 1 Corinthians 15 verse 52 and 1 Thessalonians 4, 15-17. The question now is, however, as to the dead in Christ, whose bodies have long decayed, and here the idea of identity of material particles is excluded by the language of the apostle himself. Using the analogy of the seed corn, he says, "Thou sowest not the body that shall be, but God giveth it a body even as it pleased him." 1 Corinthians 15, 37 and 38. There is here identity between the old and the new, even as regards the body, but plainly it is not identity of material substance. In truth, as a little reflection will convince us, the identity of our earthly bodies in no case consists in sameness of material particles. The matter in our bodies is continually changing. In the course of a few years has entirely changed. There is no more identity in substance between the body of today and the body of 10 years ago than there is between the waters flowing past a given point on successive days. The bond of identity lies in something deeper, in the abiding, organizing principle that is the thread of connection amidst all changes. That endures, is not destroyed at death. Quickened anew into activity, it stamps its individuality and the marks it inherits from the old body upon the new. But there is a glorious change. It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. 1 Corinthians 15, 42-44. It is fashioned anew, that it may be conformed to the body of his glory, according to the working whereby he is able even to subject all things unto himself. Philippians 2:21. It needs to be said, and I don't think Orr says it here because he doesn't think anyone contradicts it. But when Paul says spiritual body, we don't trip over that. As Jehovah's Witnesses, we did trip over it. Because he doesn't mean a body made of spirit. He means a body controlled by spirit. This remains to be demonstrated elsewhere, and Orr doesn't really go into that here. Next time, the last segment of James Orr's Sidelights on Christian Doctrine, and it's about the judgment, the final judgment.